Hi, I'm Nancy Cohen, a visual artist living in Jersey City, New Jersey. I make drawings in and out of handmade paper, meaning I make the paper and then I use paper and paper pulp to make the images on the drawings. And I make sculpture and installations in a range of materials, at the moment primarily wire and glass. It's April 1st, 2024. I grew up in Queens and in the suburbs of New York City. My mom is very creative, and she was always making things, sometimes paintings, but more likely knitting sweaters, making quilts, and doing unexpected things around the house, like covering my childhood bedroom with felt flowers or painting images on all the light switch plates and filling cracks in the sink with painted flowers. She and my grandmother were also incredible gardeners, very involved with color and very attuned to the visual world. My dad was in no way visual, although he was very connected to certain kinds of music, and he was a loving and supportive person, and also extraordinarily kind. I was very influenced by those two different ways of approaching the world. I think making things as a part of life felt natural, although actually becoming an artist was very much an unconventional choice in my immediate and extended family. I also have a strong need to connect to people through art and otherwise, and I have done that with a strong group of artist friends and through teaching, collaborating, and overall trying to reach out to help others when I can. I grew up in the vicinity of water. I spent my early childhood in an apartment where I could see the Throgs Neck Bridge out my window of my childhood bedroom, and my grandparents lived on a street perpendicular to the beach on Long Island, and I would spend part of my summers there. I can remember as a child falling asleep to the sound of the ocean. When we moved to the suburbs, there was a pond close to my backyard, and I was aware of the changing water levels and how the waterfowls and the plants changed over the course of the summer and the winter. As an adult, I moved to Jersey City, where for many years I had a studio where if I looked out the window in the right direction, I could see a very congested part of the Hudson River. I would watch the tumbleweed fly into the water. I watched years of development obscure this view. Water became an unconscious, natural part of my aesthetic, and very much a focus later on to various kinds of research and exploration. I would say as a young sculptor, I was very interested in the sculpture of Giacometti, both the surrealist and figurative works. I connected to seeing something I could feel in my body. In grad school, there was a Louise Bourgeois exhibition at MoMA that was very influential in terms of the emotional and psychological content of her work. During my years in grad school, I also started seeing a lot of dance and took some classes in choreography, along with my studio art classes. When Richard Serra started making his torqued ellipses, those were very impactful, as was seeing his poured lead installation at the San Francisco MoMA. In general, I respond to physical, tactile, emotional, and visceral work, and that's something I'm trying to get in my own work, whether it's in my smallest sculpture, my large paper tapestries, or my installations. Since I moved to Jersey City in the late 1980s and had that studio near the Hudson River, I've been thinking consciously about our waterways, how we impact them, and how they change us, and particularly the rivers in New Jersey in terms of industrialization, environmental damage, remediation, climate change, all of that. In thinking about waterways and our changing climate, I am also very conscious of how that's impacting our bodies and our communities as a whole. The materials I use most right now, primarily paper and glass, both have strong connections to water and to those environments as well. Paper is made in water, and a major component of glass is sand. Both of these craft histories and industries developed along the rivers. The water shaped the industries, and the industries impacted the water. It all feels very circular to me. I've made work about many rivers in New Jersey, the Hudson, the Hackensack, the Mullica, the Passaic, and I'm now beginning a collaborative project with my friend and sometimes collaborator, Anna Booth, on the Maurice and Delaware rivers in South Jersey and the relationship and interaction with the development of glassmaking in southern New Jersey and Philadelphia. We've been looking at art, reading about the history, and we're about to begin a collaborative, hands-on project at the Wheaton Arts in Millville, New Jersey. There's obviously challenges to being an artist, having enough money, having time, having opportunities, and the more personal ones, trying to balance life, spending time with people you love while having time in the studio, and then being both the kind of person you want to be and the kind of artist you want to be. Those are hard sometimes. Finally, continuing to grow in your work over time. Looking back, I would have advised my younger self to think more about the future and try to plot out where I might want to be with my work and my job life and how I might have wanted to get there. I've been more in the moment in ways that might not have been so smart. On the other hand, having less of a plan might have made me more open to serendipitous possibilities, and I'm grateful for those. I constantly try new and unconventional methods and techniques. I love experimentation and finding my own way. I've learned a ton about papermaking and glass by collaboration and observation, but I never studied either one, and it's been a lot of trial and error. I'm inspired by trying things that might not work and seeing what happens. I can roll with the disappointments because there are always discoveries along the way. In my current exhibition, The State We're In at Markel Fine Arts in New York City, there are examples of this everywhere. I have also probably filled a dumpster with glass experiments that crumbled in my hands. Lots of boxes of Band-Aids, too. I also love collaborating and have done it with poets, landscape architects, scientists, other visual artists, and last year with a group that included a writer, a singer, 2 composers, and a video artist working on a narrative about coral reefs and climate change, spearheaded by Megan Woods, who wrote the story. I'd never worked with a narrative before. I'd never worked with composers, with a singer, with a video artist, and Megan had never worked with anyone like me, so it was pretty much all new all the time for the two of us. Now I'm working with artist Anna Booth on the Maurice River project I mentioned earlier, and with my painter friend Dale Emart on a zine idea she brought to me. Every time I collaborate, I am up against things I don't know how to do, and it's both a challenge and a thrill. I have the staying power to know that eventually we will get it somewhere that feels right. When I'm in the studio and really concentrating, I prefer quiet or classical music or jazz. There's also a lot of labor in my work, and when I'm in those modes, I'm pretty much addicted to public radio and podcasts, short stories, politics, and podcasts about art. I've had a few times when people who own my work have told me it makes them feel good to be around it. And I've also had some times when other artists have visited my studio and told me they feel inspired afterwards. I don't quite understand what prompts either of those reactions, but they both make me happy. I would like people to be curious about my work, to be drawn in and hopefully get a little lost in it. I hope to keep them engaged long enough to think about what might be going on. Each work for me has more than one thing going on, so there's always more than one way to engage with it.